Okay, so we're going to try this again. I decided to record my whole first presentation without audio. That would have been hard to understand. So, my name is Drew Collins, and this is the Healthcare Technology Management System project. And basically, I shortened it to HealthTech MS, which just was an easier way to say it. But like it says, it's a management app for biomedical device service facilities. So, the whole point of it is the application is used to manage biomedical equipment. So think ventilators, ICU monitors, anesthesia machines, your basic little like finger cuffs where they read your blood oxygen saturation, any kind of medical device, and all the service records that go along with them, which I'll explain here in a little bit, need to have extensive records held. So it's used by technicians and managers of these devices, right? Supervisors manage their technicians, and the technicians take care of the devices. They have to be maintained. Just like anything mechanical or electronic, eventually it wears out, and you have to have someone fix it, or at least check and make sure it's working properly. These pieces of equipment save people's lives every day. You guys know this with the pandemic and the rush for ventilators early on to try to help people breathe. A lot of that equipment is serviced by biomedical technicians. So with that, there's a lot of rules and regulations, right? Just kind of how they manufacture cars, right? You have to adhere to certain standards and then maintain those standards to have a product, because these touch people and they hold a lot of different pieces of electrical current. And the devices are supposed to help people live, but if they can also be dangerous at the same time, they have to be documented as to how much they're tested to ensure that they're still safe before it ever contacts a patient. And with that, you can imagine if you have a device for a few years, these places are testing them every 6 months. So you end up with a wide array of paperwork, all this documentation on the device itself. And that's not to mention service records or manuals or anything like that. But my idea for the whole application was to create something where you could manage all of that digitally. And you'll see kind of what I'm talking about here in just a minute. But it was built for Windows machines. I use Visual Studio. That's what I'm most comfortable with. I know I had the most ability. It was going to be the easiest for me to do the project, so I didn't have to learn something brand new. And my idea was to kind of take it in the direction of building it so that it could be easily transitioned to like an app-driven device, like a tablet or a phone or something like that, Apple platform or Android. It didn't really matter. I wanted to be able to take it and move it to that eventually. But I did it in Visual Studio for Windows. So why? I kind of explained a little bit, but basically there's so much paperwork, and this is based on my experience. I teach biomedical technicians now, and I've worked in the area for a little while, so I've seen a lot of different shops, and they all are just buried in paperwork, right? File cabinets and file cabinets full of paperwork. Some of these hospitals carry thousands, if not 10,000 or more devices in their system. So when you have all this paperwork that has to be held on them for years and years and years and years, you just kept creating less space because you kept filling it with paper. So I said, why not go digital? And also, service technicians, even the most experienced service technicians, still have to refer to online documentation, right? Like a manual on how to service it, or a manual on what it's supposed to do, how it's supposed to work a certain way. And even the most experienced ones end up, referencing for new equipment or something like that. So I wanted to put all that information in a database to go along with the service record. So basically you find your device, and then you would be able to pull all this information on it. And then for safety checks. So most of these places are testing their devices every 6 months, sometimes every 12 months. But sometimes it can be hard to remember what devices need to be tested when. And they track a lot of that on paper, so they ensure that they do it, because they get in a lot of trouble if they don't. But if you had like a reminder system, right? Like reminders pop up on your phone saying, hey, you have like a doctor's appointment today. It would be the same thing for that. Just a reminder and a calendar set up so you could set and receive notifications on appointments. So why not have one application that did all that for you? That's kind of the goal here. So the Health Tech Management System is what I came up with. It allows techs to go digital, have all their library of equipment and all the paperwork be stored online, so they don't have to go shuffling and searching. And I mentioned online, right now everything's stored locally on my machine, but the way I had this set up, I wanted to throw everything on a web server, so basically you could access it anywhere. Phone, device, as long as you had an internet browser, you could make it work. That's the end goal. But I'm nowhere near close to that. So as an overview for the technologies that I used, it basically provides a lot of different kind of small services that need to be integrated. And my idea was to have this as like a workspace, right, that's open on your desktop all the time. So when they come in to go to work, they have their bench and their computer, and they can boot it up and then see that they're online, they can check notifications, all the other stuff. But it gives up-to-date service record tracking, it documents it, and then there's service manuals for the technicians if they need to reference something to figure out how to work on it. And then also the reminder service to give them notifications when something needs to be worked on. And this is loosely based on what's called the Timco Retail Manager. It's a video series on YouTube made by Tim Corey, and you guys might have heard that name before. But he basically wrote like a 45 or 46 video series on building an app from scratch in today's real life world, right? So not like in school, but if you were out working and in a development environment, this is the steps that you would be taking. And he's pretty renowned in the industry, so I figured he was somebody I wanted to trust, and everything, he completely knew what he was doing. So I trusted him, and I kind of followed it. He did what he called a retail manager. So it was basically, think of like a store. It's an application that would manage their inventory. It had a sales register, right? So you could hook it up to a register system and run transactions. But it tracked all of that, had their database for everything, and almost everything he was using was stuff that I wanted to use. So it was kind of a perfect fit. I just had to switch everything over to what I needed it to do. Since I was kind of doing an inventory manager, but different things. So it's loosely based. I did follow a lot of the background stuff that he did because it works really, really, really well. So the video series really helped me integrate everything, and that was the problem that I had. Like, I had a really good grasp on what I wanted to do part by part, right? So the login screen, like, I knew how I wanted to do a login screen, and that wasn't going to be that hard. Or bringing up a document, that was fine. Uploading a document to a database or a file, something like that. I've done all those like by themselves, but I never put everything together. And I found out pretty soon, so just as an explanation, I'm going to let this run in the background while I'm explaining this. This is just a short video of all the classes and properties, all the different projects that I had to build everything into one. So I'll let that play. But what I found out early on was that it was taking me down a rabbit hole that was never going to be a functional project. So after the first couple of weeks of me trying to struggle and do everything on my own, right, with all the research, I pretty much abandoned ship and just tossed it and started over once I started looking more into the Timco Retail Manager. And as I was following it, right, I was changing and doing stuff on my own, but I was learning. And it was real world learning. It was like I set up a GitHub repository just so I could share the project if somebody else was working on it with me. He went through the Team Explorer, which we never did in .NET 1 or .NET Core. Just saving and syncing a project, seeing if somebody else worked on it, the different branches you can operate on. It was a whole new world. So I learned so much, especially about putting two different things together. And there's some other programs and stuff that's in the background, right? So this is just showing you that. I'm going to go back one slide real quick. So it's showing you over here on technologies used. I programmed in C#, little bit of JavaScript. A lot of the JavaScript was in the background. I didn't actually do it. It was just stuff that I brought over as like helpers. It is a WPF app, ASP.NET. It's set up now with .NET Framework, but the part of the project towards the back end, he actually took everything and transitioned it to .NET Core. So that was going to be in the video. That was a part of his teaching moments as well. Like I said, using Git, I had a GitHub repository. There's a couple other things that I'm using in the background. Swagger for API management, I really liked. I saw Postman, and we worked with Postman a little bit, but I think I liked Swagger better because it was directly in the API when I would do it. But it is web API driven. I knew that I wanted that functionality, and that was great for user management. And of course, the HTML that comes along with it, and then SQL Server does all my database management because I knew how to implement it really easily. So So like I said, this is just a quick video kind of overview that was showing what I did on the project. But the timeline, I kind of explained a little bit of it. Right, I started with some research on how to create the app I was looking for. I didn't go far enough down. I think my ego and my pride was a little bit too high. So that's what led me to jump ship and start a different project. So I settled on a WPF setup. I knew that's what I wanted because I was going to be dealing with a lot of forms, and it was fairly popular. So I said, I'll go with it. And it seemed like it was what I wanted to do, and create everything in C#. It's what I was most comfortable with. Like I said, led to my demise. I had no idea what I was doing yet. So I started that retail manager course just to see what he was doing, and I really liked it. So I started to follow along, and then I just, as he was explaining one concept, I was applying it to what I was doing. So it was really good. Slowly but surely the project crept along. It is nowhere near finished, but it is a very, very, very good app as of right now. Its testing has gone great, and development has not been that bad. So, but it's great at user management. I have full authentication. It's got a token system. It's everything user management is nice and secure. Server database access. As I was going through and programming it, right, he was telling me how to separate my classes and different things like that to ensure that I was taking user information and keeping it separate from like device information database. Just to like little things like that he would explain, and I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. How somebody could get into a system and hack into it. So it's great at that. And then so for as far as visuals go, right, it pops up as soon as you boot up, and it's got a .exe, so you know, just like any other application, you double click it, opens it up, and the login form pops up. I do have a shell that basically maintains everything, but it's hidden the whole time. But the login form comes up, and you enter tech ID, which is usually an email, and then a password. And then that talks with the API, checks with the database, makes sure that person's good, throws back a token, gives you assurances as that person is who they are, and then I actually track that ID and token throughout whatever they're doing in the process, so you can tell who logged in, what they did the whole time, and I use that token to identify them later on for different things. So that was a good part and piece, but that part works really well. And then in between the logo and this enter login right here is actually a blank text box that pops up if they entered something wrong, right? So it's wrong username or password, or not enough digits, password's incorrect, stuff like that. That pops up depending upon what the error was. But I kind of wanted it hidden unless something went wrong. And then once you log into the login screen, it closes out, and then it will boot up to this home screen, which is really simple. These 6 gray boxes are just buttons to get you to different sections of the project. And I wanted that to make it user-friendly, right? There's nothing that can go wrong because all you can do is click. You can log out. That's about the worst thing you could do before you went into some of the other things. So, and then one of the main buttons, like this is where the tech would spend the most of their time, is at what I call the service screen. So it should populate, I don't have it because this was me just developing the program when I took the snapshot, a list of devices that pops up, and that's all the devices you have in your system, whether it be 1 or 10,000. They would all list off right there. And that's the first thing that would always come up as soon as you boot it up. If you click on a device, 2 things happen. The attached documents for that device, right, service records, manuals, any other kind of information that's an actual file that had to be scanned and made digital and brought in, that would come up, and then the second thing would be the device information would load up on this screen in the upper right. So that's model, make, serial number, last technician who touched it, last service date, stuff like that would come up as soon as you click on the device. And then if you went down to attach documents, and this is where it would mostly be used for, you could double click and then it would bring up a preview of the document, and from there you could print, you could open it on its own if you wanted to. That's where a lot of the different stuff would happen. And then over on the right I also have a search box in case you don't want to scroll through all the devices, right? If you had thousands, you don't want to do that, so you can search the devices in the database that way. And then I had several different databases, right? I had the devices, I had users, and all of this was talking back and forth with the API, right? So I had my own local, and the API had its copy. But I had acquired and disposed. I had a couple different databases for more detail on certain things, depending upon what I was using it for. Not a lot of doubling up between them, but I used different ones for different things. So I had a few of those. There is supposed to be an upload wizard, right, that comes up and walks you through like what kind of file, where you're going to want to put it, just so they could upload things that you did digitize. If you had something that had to be on paper, you'd have to scan it and put it in still, but it would be digital. And then the calendar, I definitely wanted the calendar. So basically, you click on it and it brings up its own calendar. And just like any other, electronic calendar, you have reminders of meetings, notes. If you wanted to set like a timer, or if you wanted to set an alarm, that's a lot what it would be used for. So that way, tech wouldn't forget they had to work on something that day. If something needs a test that day, it would come up and say, "Hey, you have a test tomorrow." So that's kind of what that was. And then the user and admin settings, this was just a direct connect from the button to the API itself. A nice pretty little section where an administrator could come in and manage users anytime they needed to. And that was the most of the functionality. The only real thing that I would do is I wish I would have had more time. I wish I wouldn't have wasted the first couple weeks on the old program. I learned a hard lesson, and I learned a lot more along the way, but I wish I had more time to get more done on the project. So I do have a great solid working application as of right now. Everything I've done so far has taken time to get there, but it is reliable. It works every time, no matter what, just like I want it to. So that I'm happy for, because that's half the battle. Eventually I'll tweak it and I'll finish it. There's no way I'm stopping at the end of the course. This thing's definitely too far gone to try to stop, but it's going to be really nice once it's all said and done. It's a long ways down. I need at least 2 or 3 more months. I know I put probably 50, in between 50 and 60 hours just directly into this project, and I need probably quadruple that time. So I just underestimated how much it was going to take to actually do. So like I said, the first iteration of the app, I don't even have a copy of it anymore. It pissed me off so bad, so I'd started over. I would have, one of the things I would have done different is I would have researched more early on. I did a little bit, but I think I got my head too big, and I thought I could do more than I really could. So, yeah, I would have researched a little bit more, and I probably would have started here if I would have spent another, I don't know, just a couple of hours looking into it. So I would have done that differently, but aside from that, I would have ended with this app, without a doubt. I love the video series. If you don't get a chance... If you get a chance to go and look at it, like I said, it's really long, but look at the overview. What he does is awesome, and it's real world. It's stuff that he did working. It's stuff that you would do working in today's environment. He just made it last year, so a lot of it's still relevant. But, yeah, so that's my project. Thanks, guys.